riff that you're about to learn sort of combines like doom metal with death metal. It's very dark. The choice of notes, like we talked about in the last lesson that we went through, the choice of notes are really what makes this. But there's one core technique that I want you to work on throughout this, and that's why I put this lesson out here. And that's that moderate speed alternate picking, sometimes what we call pedaling. And I'll tell you right now, before we get into this, and I'll throw up the tabs, we'll break this up piece by piece, but I'll tell you now, sometimes it can be more challenging to play that alternate picking and to keep that timing at a moderate speed than it is to play faster riffs. So let's break this down. The very first part of the riff you heard just now is this right here. Here are the chords that we're throwing in with that. It's kind of a variation of some wicked sounding power chords here. So these are pretty simple because we're just playing the same thing, but just moving it a half step. We've got the E and A strings, frets 6 and 5. So almost like you're playing a G chord, right? But we've got frets 6 and 5, and then we just move that a half step, okay? A half step down. So 6, 5, 2, 5, 4. So it gives you this sound here. And again, we just combine that with the pedaling. So what I want us to do right now is let's play that part together a couple of times. I'll throw the tabs up so you can see it. I mean, you don't really need the tabs, but I'll put them up there anyway. Let's play through this a couple of times. Now, the second part of this riff is essentially the same strategy, if you will, same technique. We start out with that pedaling, but we're just going to change up the power chords just a little bit here. So this is what we'll do this time around. Okay, so you've got the pedaling part down. The power chords, though, we're going to come down here a bit, and we're going to play the C power chord here. And you could play the C up here. You could go here. But because of what we're doing after that, I just like the way it feels and the way it sounds. You know, you get a little bit different texture with different strings. You know, that C note on the E string sounds slightly different, just a slightly different texture than what it sounds like on the A string 3rd fret, right? So I just choose to play that here. So again, we've got the C power chord down here, that's frets 8 and 10. Then we're gonna go 8 and 9, so this. After that, we do this little thing here. So in this case, we're starting on frets 7 and 6. But then what's cool is I'm going to move up a half step and then move right back down. So we go 7, 6, then we go 8, 7, then back to 7, 6. So it's like this. Alright, now let's you and I play this together. I want to throw the tabs up for you. Let's go through this a couple of times. Now we're kind of halfway through the lesson at this point, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the entire riff just so you can have it in context, and there's really only one more part that we have to learn because we actually played the same thing twice for the 1st and 3rd part, and you'll see what I'm talking about, or hear what I'm talking about here. Let me play this in context. we don't need to run through that last part. I mean, it's just power chords. Let's just run through the entire thing together. And of course, I'll have the tabs. Let's go through this a few times. Now, real quick, if you're part of my Guitar Academy, the Jason Stallworth Guitar Academy, you have the tabs and the backing tracks, the multiple backing tracks for this lesson. So make sure you log in and download those. Of course, I want you to play along with that full mix track with everything, but then you know what to do after that. Play along with the track, the secondary track I give you, with just the drums and the bass line to that. And that's where I want you to start branching out and adding your own notes to that. You've got that bass line going to give you that foundation, and the drums, of course, but this gives you the opportunity to start playing some different variations of what you learned in this riff. And it's very important to you as a guitar player and as a musician that you start developing this sense of just being able to translate what you're hearing in your head and what you're feeling onto the fretboard. So I strongly encourage you to do that. So make sure you log in and download those. If you'd like to learn more about how being a part of my academy can help you grow as a guitar player and musician, there is a link in the description of this YouTube video, so be sure to check that out. Now, just like I talked about in the last lesson that we did, that was on like a really like brutal death metal riff that you learned. So if you didn't see that, go back and check that out. I'll link to that in the description, because I want you to really play both of these styles, because now we're getting into more of, I don't want to say slow paced metal, but it's more of a moderate speed. And again, you know, that steady pedaling, sometimes that can prove to be more challenging, playing that at a little bit slower speed as opposed to just playing like super fast, like getting into the tremolo picking. Sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to get the timing down to that. And of course, that's the technique that we're building in this lesson here. But the second thing I want to chat briefly about are the choice of notes that we did. I mean, you notice those notes were like all over the place. They didn't adhere to any key or any like perceived rules. We just kind of balled those up and threw those out the window. And that's something that I want to encourage you to do. You know, in the last lesson, the lesson 2 weeks before this one, you know, I talked a little bit more about the theory side of things and how I don't really think about a scale or even a chord progression when I'm writing stuff like this. I just allow this to flow freely. What I do think about is, how can I have this sound more abstract? How can this be a little bit more creative and just sound like, wow, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense at all, but it fits together so beautifully. Now, of course, if we added some death metal or black metal vocals to this, and who knows, we may do that soon, because I'm really liking these riffs, and I hope you are too. But I just want you to think about that. There are no rules. Don't worry about the key you're playing in. Just allow yourself to play whatever you're feeling, okay? As you play along with this and learn these riffs, allow yourself to just play whatever is wanting to come out. Translate that. Work on translating what you're feeling in here and what you're hearing in your head. Work on translating that to the fretboard, and let it be just whatever it is. Give yourself that freedom as a guitarist and musician. And I've said this before, give yourself the freedom to be your own guitarist. Like I've said many times, the best riff you'll ever hear is the one that you write. So I hope this lesson does help you. I hope it brings out some different styles within you. And hey, build on this and see what you can come up with. All right, until the next video, as always, keep it metal and keep playing music.